Have you ever felt like you had to, I don't know, earn your right to feel joy?
Oh, absolutely. It's like having this invisible ledger in your head.
Exactly. Like you grind through a demanding 40-hour work week, you meticulously check off every single box on your to-do list, scrub the kitchen, run the errands,
Mhm.
and only then, only when that mental ledger is perfectly in the black, do you actually grant yourself permission to just sit down and enjoy your life for a few fleeting minutes.
Yeah, we constantly tally up our productivity, like our usefulness to society just to justify a momentary feeling of happiness.
It is a grueling way to live.
It really is. It creates this perpetual state of emotional debt. We've essentially commodified our own well-being, you
Yeah,
know?
that's exactly it.
By treating presence and happiness as transactional rewards for good behavior, we inherently frame them as unnatural states. Like our baseline state of existence should be a struggle, and joy is just a brief, heavily taxed vacation from it.
Which means the moment you slip up, that permission to be happy is immediately revoked.
It-
And that psychological trap is
Yeah.
exactly why our deep dive today is going to be so vital for you. Looking through the stack of source materials, there is one particular piece we are extracting the core insights from today.
It's a really unique one.
It is. It's this vibrant, futuristic narrative titled Rave Girlies, Storytime, The Night the City Sang Back.
Great title.
I know, it's so good. On the surface, it's this visually stunning piece of fiction about three friends going out dancing in a bioluminescent city. But our mission today is to use this beautifully crafted narrative to unpack some deeply profound, real-world truths.
Fiction usually is the best laboratory for this sort of thing.
Right. We are going to break down the actual mechanics of being present, deconstruct the illusion of time scarcity, and figure out how to finally let go of the guilt we associate with unconditional joy.
And, fiction provides the safest space for examining our own psychological rigidities. The setting of this narrative isn't just window dressing. It functions as a masterclass in environmental psychology.
Yeah, how external spaces can entirely dictate internal permissions.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this. The setting is a metropolis called Neo-Hikari. And if you visualize the heavy, memory-laden concrete cities we live in, Neo-Hikari is the absolute antithesis.
It's entirely different.
The text describes a city that physically breathes. So picture translucent sky walkways suspended high between towers, massive light columns stretching upward, lush sky gardens woven right into the architecture.
It sounds incredible.
It really does. Everything pulses with a soft, bioluminescent rhythm. The environment itself hums with life, and the narrative implies that when the collective energy of the inhabitants aligns perfectly, the city actually sings back to them.
What's fascinating here is that Neo-Hikari isn't depicted as a utopian accident.
Right, it didn't just happen.
No, it is an intentional collective choice made by its inhabitants to engineer a space that supports a specific psychological state.
Uh-huh.
The text zeroes in on how the city handles the concept of nighttime. Like, it never plunges into absolute darkness. Darkness is kept sacred and strictly reserved for rest.
I love that detail.
Yeah, but there is this designated phase, a space between dusk and deep night, which they call the luminous hours. The inhabitants have structurally and culturally decided that this specific window of time is purely for joy.
They build it into the actual infrastructure.
Exactly. They haven't just allowed for happiness, they've built the world to demand it.
Structuring an environment around the luminous hours is a beautiful concept. But, a city built for joy is utterly useless if the people inside it don't possess the psychological software to experience it.
Oh, for sure.
We all know someone who could be standing in the middle of a glowing bioluminescent paradise and still be agonizing over an awkward email they sent 3 days ago.
Guilty as charged.
Right. So the text introduces us to three main characters, and they effectively serve as three distinct archetypes of mindfulness.
They do. And what makes the narrative compelling is that it avoids presenting a monolithic version of, enlightenment.
Yeah.
It demonstrates that achieving a baseline state of presence doesn't require erasing your individual personality.
Take the first character, Holly Pocket. Visually, she is a complete sensory overload. She's got orange-red twin tails, magenta eyes, a bright yellow bow at her chest. She is a burst of immediate kinetic energy.
She really is.
But beyond her aesthetic, she operates on a highly specific philosophy that I found completely gripping. When the city starts its evening tuning up, Holly mentions that she always knows because she feels things in her feet first.
That's such a great image.
Right. She explicitly claims that the earth spoke upward. And if you pay attention to that upward movement, You never miss anything.
That phrase, the earth spoke upward, is a brilliant distillation of what cognitive scientists call bottom-up processing, as opposed to top-down processing.
Oh, interesting. Break that down for us.
Well, when we are trapped in anxiety or that ledger balancing mindset we talked about earlier, we are entirely in our heads. That's top-down. Our racing thoughts dictate how we interpret the physical world, usually filtering everything through a lens of stress.
So we're projecting our stress onto everything around us.
Exactly. But Holly's method flips that. By focusing her awareness on the physical sensation of her feet on the ground, she forces a neurological grounding.
Wow.
She lets the raw sensory data of the present moment travel upward to inform her brain, effectively short-circuiting the anxiety loop.
That neurological framing makes a lot of sense, especially when you contrast Holly with the second character, Cherrybone.
Right, Cherry's very different.
She is. She has this fluid, tidal quality. While Holly is loud, immediate, and kinetically tied to the ground, Cherry is described almost like a liquid element.
Yeah, she just kind of flows.
She steps out, tilts her head, and taps into the city's frequency with this profound sense of gratitude. But her gratitude doesn't demand anything to happen, like she doesn't need the music to start or a specific event to occur.
Cherry represents a state of ambient resonance. Holly actively anchors herself, but Cherry simply allows the environment's baseline frequency to wash over her.
Which sounds amazing, but also really hard to do.
It is an incredibly difficult psychological state to achieve. Passive reception without judgment. She isn't anticipating a future reward, you know? She is finding total sufficiency in the mere fact that the environment is tuning up.
And that brings us to the third archetype, Vivi Shine. She has deep purple hair, and she carries this steady, undeniable warmth. The narrative emphasizes how she takes up space.
She really owns her presence.
She does. She is described as someone who has made total peace with being exactly as large as she is. And okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
In our everyday reality, we are constantly navigating this brutal social dichotomy. We are either pressured to play small and shrink ourselves to make others comfortable, or we are pushed to perform, like to loudly broadcast our value so people notice us.
Right, it's exhausting trying to find the middle ground.
But Vivi is described as not shrinking, not performing. To me, it highlights the difference between a spotlight and a lantern.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah, think about it. A spotlight is an aggressive, directed beam. It demands attention, it blinds you to the periphery, and it requires constant energy to aim. A lantern, on the other hand, simply illuminates the space it occupies.
It just glows.
Exactly. It doesn't force your gaze, but it changes the temperature of the entire room just by existing.
That lantern analogy perfectly captures the concept of self-actualized presence versus ego-driven performance.
Yeah.
A spotlight is inherently insecure. It exists only to illuminate a target, which represents our constant need for external validation. But a lantern is secure in its own emission. Vivi's steady warmth demonstrates that true presence doesn't require you to minimize yourself, nor does it require you to drain your energy proving you deserve to be there.
Looking at these three friends, like Holly's grounded kinetic energy, Cherry's tidal resonance, and Vivi's steady illuminated presence, the text systematically dismantles the idea that there is a correct way to be mindful.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to presence.
And if that internal security is established, it completely changes how a human brain processes external, unpredictable stimuli. We see this mechanics play out as the three friends leave their space and begin their physical journey across the city.
The walk to the club.
Right, they take a transparent skywalk toward a place called the Prism District. Holly is leaning over the edge of this translucent floor, twin tails dangling, actively narrating the world below.
She's just taking it all in.
She spots three kids chasing a light moth, a vendor selling unfamiliar fruit, a group of people sitting in an evening coherence practice. She even humorously points out a cat, and the second cat that just seems to randomly materialize out of nowhere.
The inclusion of those granular details is vital to the story's underlying mechanics. The characters aren't treating the transit between 2 points as dead time to be rushed through.
Yeah, they aren't just trying to get there.
Right. Their internal state of presence expands to envelop the journey itself.
I noticed Cherry's reaction to all of this, too. She watches the cats glitch into existence, she feels the transparent floor beneath her, and she just has this soft smile of pure, untethered gratitude. She doesn't need to reach the destination to start enjoying the night.
Because For a mind that isn't trapped in anticipation, every sensory input is an arrival.
Wow, every sensory input is an arrival. That's good.
They aren't buffering. They are fully rendering the world as it happens.
They eventually do arrive at the Prism District, and the way that text builds the sensory architecture of this dance space is phenomenal. It features these massive central columns of shifting water light moving through deep blues, greens, and warm golds.
The imagery is just stunning.
It is. And the music isn't just auditory. The bass registers as a distinct physical warmth in the chest. And there's a technological feedback loop, too.
Right. The environment responds to them.
Yes, the environmental frequencies actually respond in real time to the quality of tension and presence the crowd brings to the floor.
It creates a closed-loop system of emotional contagion. Like, in the real world, human nervous systems co-regulate. If you walk into a room of anxious people, your heart rate often elevates.
Oh, for sure. You can feel the tension.
Exactly. In the Prism District, the architecture externalizes that co-regulation, rewarding collective presence with deeper sensory immersion.
And Holly's reaction to this environment is to immediately throw her arms up and yell, "Yes, this is IT."
She is just so unfiltered.
Totally. She bypasses any instinct to scan the room to see if her enthusiasm is socially acceptable. She just claims the joy instantly. She even strikes up an immediate bond with a stranger named Luma, who has this striking luminescent teal hair.
That interaction is so pure.
Holly just turns to Luma and effortlessly delivers a profound truth about their shared future with the sound. There is zero friction between her internal joy and her external expression.
And that total lack of friction leads to the text's most crucial philosophical breakthrough. When the characters finally settle into the rhythm of the dance floor, the narrative explicitly addresses the cognitive experience of time.
Yeah, this part blew my mind.
It states, time didn't disappear. It just stopped being scarce.
So what does this all mean for you? I want you to really examine that specific phrasing. It stopped being scarce.
It's a huge shift in perspective.
When was the last time you experienced a moment where time lost its scarcity? And I don't mean a moment where you simply had an empty schedule or a long weekend ahead. I mean a moment where you were so entirely met by the present reality, so thoroughly engaged with what was happening right in front of you, that the very concept of a clock felt absurd.
It's rare for most of us.
The narrative illustrates this beautifully with Cherry. She finds herself drifting in the crowd alongside a silver-haired woman moving in an easy parallel current. They don't even speak, they just share a glance of mutual recognition.
They're just existing together.
Right. They aren't waiting for the song to end or for the beat to drop. They are just fully existing in the current.
The neuroscience of time perception explains exactly why that scarcity dissolves. Our brains track the passage of time primarily by measuring the distance between our current state and an anticipated future event or goal.
Like constantly checking the time to see when a meeting will be over.
Exactly. When we are constantly looking forward, waiting for the weekend, waiting for the workday to end, we stretch our awareness across time, which creates the sensation that we never have enough of it.
Wow.
Time feels scarce because we are always spending it on the future. But when a state of joy is totally unconditional, anticipation drops to zero.
Because there's nowhere else you'd rather be.
Right. Vivi experiences this near the water light column. She lets the light graze her fingertips and requires nothing extra, no emotions, no corrections. When the brain starts predicting the next moment because the current moment is sufficient, the psychological ticking clock simply stops.
That realization fundamentally alters how we view the peak of an experience.
Yeah.
Like in most stories about a night out, the climax is the loudest song or the most chaotic moment on the dance floor.
Yeah, the big drop.
But here, the true emotional thesis is quietly unpacked during the come-down. Much later in the night, the sensory installations shift to soft, ambient light, and the three friends find each other again without even having to plan it.
They transition from high-stimulus external expression to a deeply reflective internal integration. This mirrors the function of the brain's default mode network, which processes and makes meaning out of our experiences when the external noise finally dies down.
They sit together on a low platform, looking out over the expanse of Neo-Hikari. The city is taking its slow, luminous breaths beneath a deep velvet sky that is pierced by stars and the slow, graceful arcs of transit pods.
It's such a peaceful scene.
It is. The text notes that Holly looks a bit disheveled, but carries this incredibly settled look, as if she has been gently reorganized into a better configuration.
I love that phrase, gently reorganized.
It's in this quiet, reorganized state that Cherry looks at her friends and asks the pivotal question. Do you remember when we used to think this was something you had to earn?
That single line exposes the entire architecture of the modern psychological trap we discussed at the beginning of our deep dive.
It really does.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Cherry is pulling the curtain back on the myth of meritocratic emotion.
Yeah.
Vivi responds by acknowledging how deeply conditional their joy used to be. And Holly adds the most resonant phrase of the entire narrative. She says they used to feel they had to justify taking up the frequency.
Justifying taking up the frequency. It is a devastatingly accurate description of how we move through the world. We apologize for our own presence.
We constantly make ourselves smaller.
We feel guilty for experiencing pleasure if we haven't suffered enough beforehand to pay for it. We think we have to earn the right to occupy a space of happiness by proving our utility first.
And this conditioning runs incredibly deep. We are trained by socioeconomic systems to view rest as a vulnerability and joy as a premium upgrade that requires exhausting amounts of social and professional currency to unlock.
You literally have to buy your happiness.
Exactly. What these characters are reflecting on is the staggering cognitive shift required to abandon that conditioning entirely. They used to live inside the anxiety of that ledger.
And what I find so moving is how they treat their past selves in that moment. Sitting under that velvet sky, the text says they look back with the particular tenderness of people who have walked a long way.
There's no judgment there.
Right.
Yeah.
There is zero self-flagellation. They don't judge their past selves for being anxious or for buying into the illusion of conditional joy. They just view it as difficult terrain they simply had to cross.
That specific detail, the self-compassion, is the precise regulatory mechanism that allows them to maintain their current state of peace.
How so?
Well, if they looked back and judged their past selves for being foolish or stressed, they would immediately reintroduce hierarchy, judgment, and conditionality into their present moment.
Oh, that makes sense.
By offering their past selves total compassion, they seal off the ledger for good. They solidify a baseline of abundance rather than scarcity.
That absolute security is sealed by Vivi's response. When Cherry asks her, "And now?" Vivi looks out at the glowing city, a world that has collectively decided to be generous with its beauty, and she answers, "Now it's just what we are."
It's beautiful.
The joy is no longer a performance. It isn't a transactional reward. It is their fundamental state of being. So when Holly rests her head on Vivi's shoulder and asks, "Same time next week?" the narrative tells us the answer was resounding, unconditional yes. It was always going to be yes.
It's the ultimate resolution of their journey. They don't have to buy a ticket to the city song anymore. Because they have stopped resisting the present moment and stopped trying to purchase their right to exist within it, they have seamlessly become part of the music itself.
Looking back at the arc of the source material we've explored today, we started in the breathing, bioluminescent streets of Neo-Hikari. We walked across transparent sky floors and decoded the reality that presence isn't a monolith.
Right, there are many ways to be present.
It can be the grounded, kinetic burst of Holly, the tidal resonance of Cherry, or the steady, illuminating lantern of Vivi. We stood in the shifting lights of the Prism District and realized that when you stop waiting for the future, time doesn't disappear. It simply stops being scarce.
Exactly.
And finally, sitting under a velvet sky, we confronted the ultimate truth. Your joy is not a currency you have to earn. You do not have to balance a cosmic ledger to deserve the luminous hours of your own life.
This raises an important question regarding application. We obviously do not inhabit a futuristic metropolis with shifting water lake columns and sky gardens.
Unfortunately.
Right, unfortunately. But the psychological mechanism at the heart of this narrative, the deliberate, radical choice to stop justifying your frequency, is entirely accessible to us right now.
It's a choice we can make today.
You have the agency to stop treating your well-being as a conditional reward. You can choose to look at the mundane spaces between your daily obligations, not as a waiting room for your real life, but as your own dedicated luminous hours.
The magic in the story wasn't the bioluminescence. The magic was the unyielding permission the characters gave themselves to just exist without apology. I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over. Early in our discussion, we analyzed Holly Pocket's philosophy of feeling things in her feet first, her claim that the earth spoke upward.
Yeah, that grounding technique.
As you navigate your actual world tomorrow, whether you are walking down a cracked concrete sidewalk, standing over your kitchen sink, or waiting on a crowded train platform, I challenge you to pay attention from the ground up. What silent frequency is your current environment speaking upward to you? And if your own city, your own neighborhood, were to suddenly sing back to you based entirely on the exact energy you are putting out into the world today, what would that song sound like?
That's a powerful question.
Would it be a frantic, anxious rhythm, constantly calculating debts and obligations? Or would it be a steady, resonant, unconditional yes? Take a good look at that invisible ledger you've been carrying around your entire life. The one where you've been meticulously tracking what you need to achieve to finally earn your joy and just throw it away. You are already allowed.